In this video, I want to show you how I took the original old Defender dash and turned it into something with CarPlay and Bluetooth speakers. The old Defender dash, a utilitarian work of art, but unfortunately a little too simple for my modern life. So I'm going to bring it into 2025 by upgrading it with a few choice bits. I thought I'd start with the instrument Binnacle, well, because of this mainly. So I bought a steel Binnacle from Raptor Engineering. This thing is epic. It replaces the flimsy, often broken dash Binnacle from the Land Rover factory, and it's really well made and looks slick. I'll put a link in the video description if you want to get one. It's definitely a worthwhile upgrade. It's not a terribly difficult job to do if you have a little tinkering experience, which most of us Defender owners have by now. I recommend removing the steering wheel to make life easier, and then the Binnacle just unscrews from the dash. The speedo cable just needs a gentle twist and a tug to remove it from the back of the dial. It's something I had to Google. The other thing worth doing is taking a reference photo for when it all needs to go back together. There are a lot of connections back there. It looks a bit of a mess, but thankfully it's only a fuel gauge, a temperature gauge and a clock, weirdly. I took a bunch of photos along the way which really helped with the reassembly. But once that's out, it's a case of swapping over the dials to the new metal Binnacle. But before it all goes back in, I'm taking this opportunity to put in a new metal Binnacle mount. So the old one needs to come out first. The components from Raptor Engineering are just so much better, and I reckon it'll transform the look of the dash. I can now swap over the instruments into the new Binnacle ready to go back in. But before I do that, I thought I'd clean up some 29 years worth of farm road dust, and I had some other things I wanted to do first before putting it all back together. Now, if you've been an avid viewer of this channel, you might have noticed this when I spent some time with Jack from Boris the Defender.
Right, let's go.
The vent just flapped up as you shut the door.
Yeah, I've got, so this is the thing with my vehicle, right, is that this vent is broken. And on my green Dickies jacket, the same pocket has lost its popper. So I have a pocket that does this and a vent that does this.
I love that when you shut the door.
Yeah.
That's so good.
Well, today I'm planning on fixing that. To do that, I need to access the vent mechanism which lies in the heart of the dash, which is already nearly half disassembled anyway. So I might as well keep going and do the job that I've been putting off for a year. The trim panel is pressed in with these little brittle plastic studs which just broke off instantly. Damn it. It's a wonder these vehicles stay together on rough roads. I swear, Land Rovers are held together with pure romantic mysticism. And you might notice that the trim panel is awkwardly cut and damaged where my left hand is holding. And that's because the previous owner, a very good friend of mine, well, one of his kids decided to quote-unquote post his credit card into the dash air vent, and so he cut it open to retrieve it. I take back what I said before. This is what holds Land Rovers together. Stories like this. But nevertheless, I'm still left with this. It's thankfully an easy job, to be fair. Just a couple of screws hold it in place from the inside, and a couple of small bolts on the broken hinge on the vent flap outside. I managed to source a second-hand one off of eBay. about a year ago. It's been sitting in the workshop. So I've just lubricated it up and hopefully it'll do the trick. The mechanism feeds through the vent hole and attaches to the flap on the outside. And once that's secure, you can fix it in place on the inside. And here's a quick tip. Fasten it to the flap first, or you won't be able to get your tools in to tighten it up if you do the lever side first. Ask me how I know that. Now that that's in, I can get the trim panel back. But what comes out doesn't necessarily mean it'll go back in. This is just not possible. But I ended up loosening off a few bolts holding the dash in, so I could push it out the way and make more room to squeeze in the trim panel. Suck on that. To reattach the trim panel, I used some small pop rivets rather than trying to source small brittle plastic clips. The new dash binnacle mount goes straight in where the old one came out. It's a bit fiddly to get the screws in, and the one in the bottom left corner even requires you to go into a zen-like trance and visualize where you're meant to be threading the screw. And once you've achieved inner peace, it's time to take a deep breath and reattach the instrument binnacle. Laying the binnacle on the top of the steering column really helps you see where the wires naturally want to locate. I just went through it methodically and it seemed to work, but I did get stuck towards the end and need to call on those reference photos.
That goes there.
The other issue I faced was that somewhere in this Defender's life, someone removed the speedo mount behind the binnacle, which holds the speedo in place. So when you push the binnacle into position, it pushes the speedo out again. The last bit of this install is the end panel which holds the temperature switches. It needs a little persuasion as you have to bend a tab on the dash to make it fit snug. It's all in the instructions and it's not difficult. And once you have it lined up and you tighten it down, it actually fits quite well. Phase 1 complete. Day 2 of a 1-hour job. Right. Now, I've completely lost track of where I am in this video. I have no idea. Some days have passed, things have happened, kids have been looked after, errands have been run, and now I'm trying to get back to this. This car has been standing for days with wires hanging out the dash. So what I'm going to do to the dash is upgrade. I want to try and bring it into the 20th century at least, but into the 21st century. And it's a little bit easier nowadays because you can get something like this, which is a Car Tablet Pro Max, and it basically allows you to have Apple CarPlay in older vehicles like this, which sits on your dash somehow, has a forward-facing sort of traffic camera or dash cam to record things on a loop, and it allows you to connect your phone via Apple Play or Android Auto and have your Google Maps and your sort of Spotify and all that sort of stuff up here. But I don't have any kind of stereo. I don't have anything that works in this truck, and I didn't want to have another interface down here. So I'm kind of just going to leave all that. I'm not going to try and get another Singleton interface to try and do Bluetooth and all that, and I've come up with a different solution to kind of keep the dash nice and tidy. So I've bought myself a really nice Marshall Bluetooth speaker, and I'm going to try and mount this in the dash somehow. And when I want to use it, say on a campsite or whatever, wherever I am, I can just take it out, use it wherever I am, and then put it back in. That's the idea. How I'm going to do that, not a clue, not a blinking clue. Now the other thing I have to do, which concerns the Car Tablet Pro Max, is that I have to install a reversing camera. It was a little optional extra which I paid a few pounds more for, which I'll have to run a cable somehow through right to the back, and that means having to take the headliner out potentially, unless I can find another way. Still suffering from a little PTSD from the last time I took the headliner out, I started prepping for a potentially big job by removing loads of the trim panels. But I soon realized that if I replaced the already broken rear window washer with the reverse camera and used the same hole, I could just run the cable back to the front of the car all along the roof ridge and hide it behind some of the other trim panels. I mean, I'd still have to deal with the headliner over the driver's door, so I could tuck up the cable behind it, but thankfully that was about it. Then I could use the A-pillar trim to hide it en route to the dash and tuck it along the gap between the windscreen and the dash. And once that was in place, I could try and figure out the next step. I knew I wanted the screen to be mounted in the center, so I thought I'd make use of the old dash tray cavity as a fixing point, just like my old phone holder from DefCAD did. But I was stuck having to use the mounts that the tablet came with, so I knew I'd need to do a bit of fabricating.
So the Car Tablet Pro Max thing comes with two different mount options. This is the one that sticks fast to the windscreen, so I know I'm never going to use this. And so I'm going to try and repurpose this ball joint connector, see if I can rig something up that makes a little bit more sense for me. So I don't mind sacrificing this. I'm going to cut the end off and see if I can mount it to something else. After all that bodging and smashing around, I've got something that resembles a mount. So this is going to sit inside the dash. This is going to be the plate that the ball joint attaches to. I have carved out, if you can see there, I've carved out a little section so the ball joint can move around. This hopefully pushes it forward enough so that it clears the front of the dash. And then I've kind of just got some bolts going through and a plate that's going to hold it in place inside the dash. So I've just super glued these nuts in here. Let's go and see if it works.
The mount worked just like the phone mount I had before, clamping up from the bottom. But it was a little tricky to tighten the ball joint, and I was concerned that it would be a little too wobbly while driving, especially off-road. And of course, the only way to test that out is with a rough road simulation. I reckon that's a soft pass, but it'll have to do. Now, to get power to it requires even more bodging, so if janky wiring upsets you, you might want to skip ahead 10 seconds. In a normal car, you just plug it into the cigarette lighter and you're done. But in this vehicle, it's not that simple. The lighter port isn't in the best condition, so I tried a bunch of different options first, but ended up having to go back to using the lighter connection because the tablet has some kind of voltage protection feature, which means it turns off if it gets fluctuating power. And because my Defender's electrics are a mess, as soon as I turn on the lights or the wipers or even the indicator, it drops the voltage and the tablet dies. So running a dedicated cable from the battery with an isolation switch and taping the lighter into the dodgy connector is my solution. It's crude, but I guess it works.
So look, this is my old Land Rover Defender with Apple CarPlay. I mean, I've got Google Maps. Use the menu and see the two cameras. I've got forward facing and I've got the reverse camera. This is sick. Got my WhatsApp.
I'll need to access your WhatsApp data to use the app.
No.
I will not then.
I'm well chuffed with that. This has been something I've been wanting to do for a very long time. I don't need to run that anymore. Switch it off. But now I need to connect some kind of sound to it, and that is going to be a challenge, let me tell you.
To get a better idea of what I was dealing with, I removed all the unnecessary wiring from an old radio and tape deck. I wanted a nice clean front panel to mount some switches and be kind of a shelf for the Marshall speaker to sit on. I had some lovely birch ply offcuts and I liked the contrast against the dark dash. I'd used the existing holes from the factory plastic panel as a way to fix it to the front of the dash. And I felt that the shelf for the speaker was also a great solution to hide some nasty cables. The other thing I had to think about was that the speaker was currently too tall for the opening in the dash, so to lower it I'd have to cut a section out. And the award for oversized tools for the job goes to... well, I suppose you've got to break some eggs to make an omelette. But my backup plan, if this all goes horribly wrong, is to get one of those mud-stuffed Defender dash center consoles and cover up any misdeeds. But fortunately it worked out and seemed to fit without too much interference. The shelf would be held in with a homemade bracket at the back and with some riv nuts and hex screws in the front. Now I could start mounting the accessories and switches into the panel, but the speaker was still a little tall, so I had to remove a section of the plastic trim at the back to make it fit way better. Well, it's been about 3 months since I started this dash, and my schedule of doing one video a week has disappeared. And lots has happened since I did this upgrade. I've driven down to the south of France and into the Pyrenees, around the north of Spain, and it's had a lot of miles. And I thought, well, it's about time I finish this video off and kind of give a little bit of feedback on how it's been going. Number one, I really like the new layout. Having the CarPlay, tablet, everything has worked brilliantly. It's been so good to have Google Maps and navigation, to have Spotify, to have everything up in an old Defender. It's just brilliant. The reversing camera has really come into its own as well in tight spaces. I used it to get on and off the ferry and into and out of small parking spaces in and out of Europe. It's been really, really good. The Marshall speaker, well, it's a great speaker. I cannot fault it. It's more than enough sound and volume. It's got depth, it's got bass, it's a great speaker. However, this Defender is not really soundproofed. So, when you're bumbling along at 40 or 50 miles an hour, you can't really hear anything. That was a bit of a fail on my part, trying to solve, having a stereo and all that kind of thing. Didn't really work out. You might notice as well that there are a few different switches on here. I added an extra USB charging point over here, so it's got USB A and USB C. This is the isolated switch, or the isolator switch for the tablet, because as I said earlier, the wiring is so janky, and this has a voltage cutout if the voltage fluctuates, and as soon as I put lights on, indicator, anything that draws a current, it drops the voltage on these piddly little wires and the screen cuts out. So this has its own direct feed from the battery with an isolation switch. So if I hit that, boom. So I just have to remember to turn it off when I get out the car. Not a problem so far. This switch over here is some spotlights which I ran, also a dedicated feed from the battery out to the front of the car. They were sort of cheapies off of Amazon, I think 30 quid including the wiring loom, but they've been great, and I've used them 2 or 3 times and no complaints for the price point. No complaints at all. Overall, a huge win, and for a simple little process of making a shelf, I think I've reimagined the whole sort of utilitarian Defender dash and sort of brought it into the 21st century with a little bit of style. On the Binnacle side of things, this Raptor Engineering instrument Binnacle has been perfect. This is one of the best upgrades I've done for sure. It's strong, it's sturdy, it doesn't rattle, and the speedo has settled back in, so it's not really... oh, there's room for a little hyperbole, I guess. But overall, it's been a triumph. I'm super happy. So I hope it's given you some ideas. I hope it's inspired you. I hope maybe you have a go on your own Defender. But for me, this is it for now. I'm as happy as can be. And thanks for watching.
If you do like this content, please do consider subscribing, send it over to a friend, and help me grow the channel. It's really cool to see that we've gone past 10,000 subscribers. I mean, I'm stoked about that. So let's keep going. See you next time.
Look at that. What the heck?